For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is Decades in the Dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. It was April 11th, 1981, in the quiet mountain town of Keddie, California. A rustic resort community tucked deep in the Sierra Nevadas, Keddie was meant to be a safe escape. Families lived in old cabins, children rode their bikes freely. But inside Cabin 28, a nightmare was about to unfold that would haunt generations. Glenna Sue Sharp had moved her 5 children to Keddie the year before, trying to rebuild after leaving an abusive marriage. The cabin was small, but it was theirs. On that Saturday night, Sue was home with her daughter Tina, age 12, her sons Rick, 10, and Greg, 5, and their neighbor friend Justin Smartt. Her teenage son John, 15, and his friend Dana Wingate, 17, came home later. Another daughter, Sheila, 14, stayed overnight at a friend's house nearby, a choice that saved her life. By morning, 3 would be dead, 1 missing, and an entire town paralyzed with fear. At 8 a.m. on April 12th, Sheila returned home. She opened the front door of Cabin 28 and froze. Her mother, Sue, lay on the living room floor. Nearby were John and Dana, all 3 bound, all 3 brutally murdered. Blood soaked the carpet, the walls, the furniture. It was more than violence, it was rage. And her sister Tina was gone. Sheila ran for help. In a back bedroom, police found Rick, Greg, and Justin alive and unharmed. The killers had spared them. Investigators quickly realized this was no ordinary crime. Sue was gagged with her own underwear, hands and feet tied with electrical cords. A blanket had been pulled over her body, as if the killers wanted to cover what they'd done. John and Dana were bound with tape and wires. Both were beaten savagely, stabbed repeatedly, and strangled. Dana's autopsy confirmed he was manually strangled on top of blunt force trauma. On the floor were the weapons, a butcher knife, a hammer, and a steak knife bent nearly 30 degrees from the force of the attack. Investigators later concluded another hammer had been used but was missing. Blood painted the walls and ceiling. Drag marks showed at least 1 body had been moved. The phone was ripped off the hook, its cord cut. A window shade had been slashed open. Partial fingerprints were lifted but never matched. Shoe prints were noted but poorly preserved. From the beginning, police suspected more than 1 killer. 3 victims had been restrained and murdered in different ways. Some bindings were tight and methodical, others sloppy, as if tied by different hands. At least 2 hammers and multiple knives were used. For one man to juggle that many weapons while controlling 3 victims didn't seem possible. The noise and chaos should have alerted neighbors, yet no one heard anything. 2 attackers could have subdued and silenced the victims faster. Even young Justin Smartt, under hypnosis, described seeing 2 men in the cabin, one with long hair, one with short. His testimony was shaky, but it echoed what the evidence already suggested. Whoever entered Cabin 28, investigators believed, did not act alone. For 3 years, the Sharp family searched for Tina. But in 1984, hikers in Butte County discovered a skull and bones scattered in the woods nearly 30 miles away. Forensic testing confirmed they belonged to Tina. Her disappearance and separate fate only deepened the mystery. Why take her? Was she the intended target? Or was she silenced because of what she saw? Suspicion focused on 2 men. Martin Smartt, the Sharps' neighbor and Justin's stepfather, known for his violent temper, abusive marriage, and hatred of Sue Sharp. Martin believed Sue was interfering in his marriage. His wife Marilyn later revealed that Sue had been counseling her, encouraging her to leave Martin and protect herself and her children from his abuse. Marilyn did separate from him around that time, and Martin blamed Sue. And John Boubede, Martin's friend and houseguest. An ex-con with ties to organized crime, Bo was seen with Martin on the night of the murders. Marilyn later claimed Martin confessed to her. A therapist reported the same, but perhaps the most damning clue was a hammer. Martin had owned a hammer that mysteriously went missing around the time of the murders. Decades later, investigators recovered a hammer from a pond near Keddie, matching the description of the one Martin had lost. To detectives, it suggested something chilling. Martin may have brought that hammer with him when he went to confront Sue. He didn't arrive unprepared. He expected violence. In the 2010s, investigators used modern DNA testing on old evidence. On a piece of tape used to bind the victims, they found a profile. That DNA matched a living suspect. Authorities never released the name, but hinted it was someone long suspected. Many believe it was Martin himself, or someone directly connected to him. In 2018, investigators confirmed the DNA pointed to at least 2 individuals. Scientific proof that there had been multiple killers inside Cabin 28. By the time these breakthroughs came, both prime suspects were already dead. John Boubede died in 1988 of natural causes. Martin Smartt lived until 2000 when he succumbed to cancer. If they were the killers, both men took their secrets to the grave.
Why this family? Why this level of violence?
One theory points to Martin's hatred of Sue Sharp. He saw her as the reason his marriage was falling apart. If he came armed with his missing hammer, it suggests he intended to confront her, and that confrontation exploded into murder. But there was also Boubede. Bo was an ex-con with a dark past, rumored to have a history of sexual offenses. Some investigators and writers have suggested that 12-year-old Tina Sharp may have been his true target. Sue, John, and Dana may have died trying to protect her. Together, the theory is chilling. Martin driven by rage, Bo driven by predation. A toxic partnership that left 3 dead, 1 abducted, and 3 children spared. Either because they weren't seen as threats, or because killing them would have raised suspicion. The Keddie murders destroyed a family and scarred an entire town. The cabin itself stood abandoned for decades, a decaying reminder of the horror within. It was finally demolished in 2004, but the questions remain. Why were Sue, John, and Dana killed so brutally? Why was Tina taken? And why were the younger boys left alive? Perhaps it was revenge. Perhaps it was rage. Perhaps Tina was the intended target all along. What is certain is this. Science has confirmed what investigators always suspected. The killers were close. They were known. And there was more than one. But justice never came. 1 mother, 2 teenage boys, a daughter who vanished. The killers walked away into the darkness. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.